Hello everyone and welcome back to TowerGate. It is day 151, August the 3rd, 2017, Thursday. It's all downhill from here, my friends. It's all downhill. One day and a wake up. Question. Why is the discussion or topic of Seth Rich literally taboo in the District of Columbia? Why will no Republicans, Democrats, liberals, conservatives, progressives, libertarians, constitutionalists, democratic socialists, why will none of them speak the words Seth Rich? It's not like people aren't interested in Seth Rich. It's not like there haven't been some very interesting new developments in the case of Seth Rich. It's not like people aren't interested or desiring of a serious investigation into the circumstances surrounding the death of Seth Rich. It's just the fact that no one inside the District of Criminals seems to have much interest in Seth Rich. Why? That is the question of the day. I have some more information on Seth Rich I'll be covering in this video today. Let's get to the topics of the day, though. How about that? So I'm looking at a thread last night on 4chan, which is a fairly entertaining place to be. And so I'm checking out this thread, and there's a thread going on about the fact that will John McCain resign and give up his seat because he now has this brain tumor, which the point being that if he's got this brain tumor, then he can't be, healthy enough to be in a position where he's making these important decisions about trillions of dollars, war and peace, important policy decisions, healthcare, 1/6 of the nation's economy, and an issue that affects everyone in the country. Should his cancer, particularly because it's a brain cancer, a brain tumor, should this be something that John McCain says to himself, the best interest of the country is that I step down from my position, allow the governor to make a temporary appointment until there can be a special election to elect a new senator in Arizona. You really need two, because you need to get rid of Jeff Flake as well. Well, that's kind of an interesting question, and I couldn't help but laugh when I was reading the thread at some of these things. It kind of makes me think about good old Senator Byrd, Robert Byrd, former Grand Dragon of the Ku Klux Klan, very, very good friend of the Clintons. Bill Clinton gave his eulogy at his funeral. He even talked about the fact that he was an old Klan member and tried to make excuses for why you had to be a part of the Klan back in those days in the foothills of Virginia to get elected. You couldn't get elected unless you were supportive of the Klan. Hell, it's especially good if you're the Grand Poobah of the Ku Klux Klan. But I remember old Senator Byrd. I'm not sure how old he was when he finally died, but probably into his early 90s maybe. But his mind was gone 10 years before that. He spent 10 years in the Senate with his mind completely gone. For those of you who can't recall many of his speeches, I'm sure some of them are on YouTube, he would literally go off into left field and start talking about his dog Billy. And he would tell us stories about his dog Billy, which would have nothing to do with any issue they were debating. It's almost like, you thought, well, is this a filibuster? No, it's not a filibuster. They're actually having floor debate over a law. Then what the hell is this guy talking about? He doesn't know. It's old Senator Byrd. Just let him go. He'll eventually get tired. So good old Senator Byrd hung around to the day he died. And then, of course, we have good old Teddy Kennedy. Teddy Kennedy had a 3-martini breakfast, a 3-martini lunch, and a 3-martini dinner before he went to his early evening party for a few more martinis before he shut down at the end of the evening with a few more martinis. And in between breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and his happy hour festivities, he drank a few martinis. The fact is that Ted Kennedy's brain was fucking pickled for 30 years. Go watch some of his speeches. He gave so many drunken, slurred speeches, he was such an embarrassment that even on 2 occasions that I can remember, another Democratic senator had to come up to him while he was speaking and whisper in his ear and say, "Okay, Teddy, that's good enough, Teddy. That's good. Let's just get you back to, let's lay you down on the couch, get you some warm milk. You'll be doing much better. You got to shut it down, buddy. You got to shut it down." Slobber dripping off of his, Teddy Kennedy was literally, his brain was pickled for the at least the last 10 years that he was in the Senate. I mean, the man again was completely, incompetent, unable to actually perform the job, just like Senator Byrd. The bottom line being, these guys do not, once they get elected senator, they do not ever step down from that position. No matter how ill or how inebriated or how pickled they may be, these guys never give it up. They're going to die, in that condition. I mean, as far as they're concerned, John McCain's concerned, he'll expect someone to come to the hospital and say, "Okay, John, if you agree with the vote, blink once. If you don't agree, if it's a no, blink twice." I mean, these people will not ever give up that power. They will die senators. The senators do not step down or walk away from that position ever. They will die in that position. Believe me, John McCain will stick around until he assumes room temperature. Until that little machine that he's watching, beep, 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 goes beep. Okay? That's when John McCain will step down. That is when he will step down. He might even have to be through the 3rd stage of rigor mortis before they finally announce that he is no longer the senator of Arizona. So he will not be stepping down, I can assure you of that. Yes, it would be the right thing to do for the country. It would have been the right thing for the country if Senator Byrd had given it up 10 years earlier than he did. If Teddy Kennedy had given it up many years before he did. Look at Nancy Pelosi. She's practically senile as well. And many more. Look at some of these guys. Even some of them I like. I mean, old Charles Grassley is a kind of a good old guy, but I mean, he's, he can't keep his thoughts, in the same direction for more than 5 minutes. None of these people have the attention span of a freaking goldfish. Less attention span than a goldfish. But they will never, ever step down from the position. So to those people commenting on that thread on 4chan, no, John McCain is not going to resign his position as senator. No, he is going to die the senator from Arizona. I can assure you of that. I would be completely shocked if he were to wake up one day and say, I really can't serve this position. I can't serve the country. I shouldn't be probably making these decisions. No, these people have never done a damn thing for the country. They're not senators because they want to do something for the country. Has nothing to do with it. They're senators because they want the power. The power. Jerome Corsi. I like Jerome Corsi. He's obviously a very smart guy. Went to Harvard Law. He knows the inside beltway type of the affairs that go on there very, very well. He's been there for many years, writing, reporting, and working there within the beltway. He's a pretty smart guy. I like Jerome Corsi. He's a bit on the sensationalist side. Mosquito buzzing around my head. But anyway, Jerome Corsi, I was really surprised. I mean, he made a comment, I believe it was on InfoWars, which means, when you get into a conversation with Alex Jones, Alex can kind of drag you into places you may not exactly want to go. But, Corsi's a pretty smart guy. But he is making a statement that Seth Rich was a sanctioned CIA hit by, we assume, John Brennan. He was the man in charge, and of course John Brennan was Hillary's boy. John Brennan and Hillary are connected at the hip. You cannot separate the two of them. Certainly he was a major part of the deep state coup operation and still continues to operate in that capacity. Remember, when you leave the CIA, you didn't actually leave the CIA. There is no leaving the CIA. No more than Mr. Dulles left the CIA after John Kennedy fired him. Does anybody believe that Mr. Dulles didn't have a hand in helping John F. Kennedy assume room temperature there in Dealey Plaza. I can assure you Mr. Dulles was up to his eyeballs in that little program. But the fact is, when I look at this, giving you the former military point of view and having talked to quite a few special forces, Vietnam era special forces, one Delta Force guy I knew who used to be Delta Force. You have to understand how assassinations work in the United States and have worked for a long time. The way it works is that whenever the United States government decides that someone needs to be taken out, if that individual is inside the United States, they will typically use Delta Force to conduct the assassination. Typically if it's outside the United States, they will use Delta Force. So it has to be outside the United States before they will go to Delta Force. Now, there have been times, we know from people who've been in that line of work, Delta Force individuals who said they had been asked by the CIA at some point to do an assassination inside the United States. And of course they had to remind them that, hey, that's, we're not allowed to do that. The CIA or the Delta Force only will do those assassinations outside the United States. And in fact, they normally will not do an assassination of an American citizen, even if he is outside the United States. The Delta Force typically conducts assassinations for the CIA of foreign individuals and individuals on foreign soil. Typically, when there needs to be an assassination done of an American citizen or someone inside the United States where the assassination will be carried out inside the United States, they typically look to private contractors, and they typically go through the organized crime networks to get those people. They line it up as a mob hit. They do not want their fingerprints on something, an assassination of an American citizen inside the United States. There have been a few situations where it has been done, and we know of one situation for sure because the Delta Force officer actually came out and told his story, which was that he was in Delta Force in the early 60s, in like 64 or so, and he was approached by the CIA on duty. They came down to Fort Bragg where he was, went to his commanding officer and said, hey, we need to talk to one of your people. We have a job for them. And they said, well, go talk to Captain so-and-so. So they went over and talked to this Delta Force captain who was one of the people who would perform generally assassinations, which he had done before, but only of non-Americans on foreign soil. And they came to this man and said, yeah, we want you to hit this guy. And it turned out this guy was a man named William Pitzer, who was a U.S. naval officer who was preparing to retire. And after retiring, it had been leaked that he was going to sell some film footage that he possessed. His job in the Navy was he was in film. He was in the media type stuff for the Navy. And apparently he had gotten his hands on the film of the Kennedy autopsy and on the J.D. Tippit autopsy, who was the police officer that was killed in Dallas just about the same time, a little after Kennedy was killed. Well, Mr. Admiral or Captain Pitzer, whatever his rank was, this naval officer, Mr. Pitzer, was going to retire, and he had, I guess, been negotiating with some media organizations about releasing this film footage. And so as a result, he became a liability to the cover-up that was going to be put in place. I don't even think the Warren Commission had actually concluded yet. And so they decided he needed to be taken out. So not only was he an American citizen, he was actually a U.S. naval officer. And so they went to this Delta Force guy and they said, hey, we need you to do this hit. And he, of course, he refused. He said, I can't really do that because, first of all, this is an American citizen. He's a naval officer and he's inside the United States. And, of course, we only do assassinations outside the United States, and typically only of foreign individuals, so I would not be able to help you with that. Well, apparently this CIA officer who spoke with him said, okay, good enough. So he went back, the CIA officer went back to this captain's commander and said, hey, this guy says he doesn't want to do it. And so the commander said, well, try this other guy. Maybe he'll do it. So they referred him to another Delta Force member, and it appears that he went ahead and took the job and did the hit, because within about less than a year after this Delta Force captain turned down the assignment, he learned that Mr. Pitzer had been killed, supposedly a suicide or something, shot in the head with a gun or what have you. And so he realized exactly what happened, and that led him to actually contact the widow of Mr. Pitzer and say, hey, I just want to let you know what I think really happened to your husband. And of course, his story is out there, and you can probably research that for yourself. But typically, when there's an assassination, like a Seth Rich type assassination, if it were done through the CIA, then it probably would have been done by a foreign assassin, and it probably would have been organized through the networks of organized crime, foreign organized crime networks, such as in Italy, such as in Sicily. They would generally have a CIA stationed person somewhere near Italy actually go speak to one of their contacts there, who could actually speak to the decision maker in Sicily, and they would arrange for a contractor to come and take that contract. They will never allow the CIA officers to deal with the person directly. They always, these type of assassins always use a middleman, and that is typically someone through the old Italian mob in Sicily. That's typically where a lot of these assassins work out of. And there's another place over there too that's very common where these assassins are contracted. So if it was a CIA hit, it was probably done by a foreign assassin or assassins. But I'm not really sure. I still don't know, myself, whether it was a pro hit or whether it was an amateur hit, or a pro hit made it look like an amateur hit. Clearly it was an amateur hit. Or it was a pro trying to make it look like an amateur hit. We don't really know. We need a real investigation, and that's how we will finally learn. But as I said earlier, it appears that there is a hush on any talk of Seth Rich or any type of serious investigation into the death of Seth Rich. We know that the FBI has a file, but apparently someone has put the clamp down on this at the highest levels, and we don't really know what Trump's position is on that, but we'll have to continue watching and to see where this goes, because this story is not going away. It's been over a year that Seth Rich was murdered, and still, not only is the story not going away, it's getting bigger and bigger and bigger. More people are digging harder and harder into the story. More information is coming out all the time. I don't know how much longer they're going to be able to keep this story down. But this is that's basically a little history understanding, and this was explained to me by a individual who was a Delta Force member during the Vietnam War. He actually got out of the Vietnam War, had some issues, was out of the military for a few years, and then came back into the military and went into the Marine Corps. He was in the Marine Corps for a few years, then got out of the Marine Corps and came back into the Army. And he was in my platoon when I was stationed in Germany. He is probably deceased now. He got shot many times. His back looked like a jigsaw puzzle from stitches and things. He got he was going down a trail with some other guys, and they walked into an ambush. And let's just say that his back looked like somebody took a knife and played tic-tac-toe on his back for a few hours. So let's move forward. Jerome Corsi, that's what he is trying to make. Jerome Corsi is trying to, I think, say that the CIA sanctioned the hit, and that it's probably someone, from the CIA or, something like that. But if the CIA sanctioned that hit, it was probably done by foreign professionals. I don't think that the CIA sanctioned that hit. Possibly, I think it was done more locally. I'm guessing SEIU thugs would be my guess. Just a wild guess. Here's an interesting question that popped up regarding, there's a lot of people trying to tie Imran Awan with Seth Rich. And it's, of course, that's certainly some good questions as to whether Awan may have had some connection to Seth Rich. We, of course, have the story that he was with Seth Rich at a private a party for IT techs the night of Seth Rich's murder. He's apparently shown in a photograph. I looked at the photograph. I don't think it looks very much like the Awan I've seen. The man in the photograph has a beard, glasses. His hair is different. It's curlier. His face is rounder. He's shorter. It really doesn't look like Awan unless it's one of Awan's brothers. And whether or not there's any truth to the story that Mr. Awan attended this private party with some other IT techs from the DNC the night of the Seth Rich murder and was actually there with Seth Rich, I cannot state whether that's a true statement or not. It's certainly out there. People are talking about it and commenting on it. But again, it's just speculation. It's, I have seen no evidence to prove that. It's a possibility. I wouldn't, totally, poo-poo it, but I don't have enough evidence that I would be comfortable with coming out and jumping on that story and giving it my personal endorsement because I appreciate my credibility. I'm trying to hold on to it. But anything's possible. But as far as, the link that there could be is the fact that Awan obviously did work for the DNC. And we know that Awan had Debbie Wasserman Schultz's personal password. We know that she was the head of the DNC, which means she communicated with the DNC, as did Hillary Clinton and people in her Hillary Clinton campaign. So we have all these people communicating, Wasserman Schultz, the DNC, and Hillary Clinton via her private server, and her people around her lieutenants, Donna Brazil and others, connected to both the DNC. So if Awan had access to Debbie Wasserman Schultz's email, which he did, and he had access to some Democrats' emails, which he did, and he had access to the DNC network, which he did, then it's very likely that he also could have gained access to Hillary Clinton's personal server network that she was running out of her home or wherever she was running it from. I assume it was in her closet or something in Chappaqua, New York. So there you can see that possibly Awan, and apparently one thing that the Awan brothers were learning that they like to do was take massive amounts of data from these databases that they were allegedly, working on, and dumping tons and tons of information, transferring data from those server networks onto another server network that they controlled. And it's believed that they were taking all that data, dumping it all onto this server that they controlled, and that they were dispersing that to various people for various reasons, most of it being, I assume, money. And so you can see where there could be a connection could have happened somewhere. You can see where their paths may have crossed. You can take a look at a sort of a chronological outlay. If you were to map it out, you could certainly see, okay, well, here's the lines of intersection where their paths may cross. It's certainly very possible. As far as, Awan's doing the hit, they don't look like murderers to me. Or anything like that, so I wouldn't go down that road. But I can certainly see where there could be something there, and now this would explain more about why the Clintons sent one of their lawyers immediately to go bail Mr. Awan out of jail and get him out of jail before they could get him in one of those little rooms with the bright lights, with the heat turned way up, and sweat him into giving some sort of a confession or giving up some information. The Clintons got their lawyer right on the job. They bailed him out and got him out of there before they had time to give him the sweat treatment to get some information out of him. And this would probably, the reason I think that would have happened is because if you're the Clintons and knowing, all the secrets and all the crimes that may be revealed from anyone who could penetrate Hillary's server network, that he could be a liability, and they probably don't know what he knows, or maybe they do know what he knows, and so they had to get him out of the pokey pretty damn skippy, which they did. And so I can see why the Clintons would be nervous about Mr. Awan being picked up and thrown in the pokey because of what he might know what he may have learned, what information he may be holding, what information he could use. Because it's one thing to blackmail Debbie Wasserman Schultz or his mother-in-law or the DNC. It's another thing to blackmail the Clintons. That's some really dangerous business to be in. Hey, that might explain why he wanted to get on a plane and head to Pakistan. Nothing will get you on a plane to Pakistan quicker than double-crossing the Clintons, or even considering it. That's a very dangerous line of work to be in. I certainly wouldn't choose it. So maybe that's the connection that people are looking at. Could be other connections, but I need more information before I'm prepared to come out and jump all over that particular bandwagon, which is going on down the road with lots of people jumping on. People will jump onto anything these days. I prefer a little evidence myself, a little evidence, or some. It doesn't have to be factual, physical evidence. I can go with some circumstantial evidence, and there is some, but I need more. I need more before I'm going to draw that connection. Okay. And there's also some suggestion that maybe Awan was, leaked the dossier, or maybe he was the one who discovered that Seth Rich was the leaker. That's also out there. It's like, okay, well, if he's working for Wasserman Schultz and the DNC, and maybe he's the guy that discovered Seth Rich was a leaker. I don't really think that Mr. Awan was that level of an IT tech. I do believe it was probably CrowdStrike. CrowdStrike, we know, wasn't just called in to work for the DNC when they determined that they may be people trying to hack them, because there's always people trying to hack them. It appears that CrowdStrike had been doing work for the DNC long before that, and had been working with Democrats long before that, since basically their inception. They've always been kind of an arm of the Democratic Party. They've always done work for the Democratic Party, and as you know, it's my position that CrowdStrike faked the Guccifer 2.0 thing. I believe that CrowdStrike created this fake persona of a Guccifer 2.0 to help sell the Russia narrative theory and to cover the leak, which they knew was a leak, which they knew was Seth Rich. But what they had to do was try to cover that, so they created this fake Russia narrative. They created this fake person, Guccifer 2.0, and put the responsibility for him on doing the leaks, and then connected him to Russia. And then they took care of Seth Rich. Okay. Samantha Power reported from the Washington Free Beacon, and a great journalist I like over there called Josh Kaplan, a very good journalist for the Washington Free Beacon, is stating today he's got sources telling him that Samantha Power, and these are State Department officials and Justice Department officials, he's got multiple sources saying that Samantha Power unmasked hundreds of times during Obama's last year in office. Keep in mind, Samantha Power was the UN ambassador. She worked in New York. And a department official, one of his department official sources and other people told him that it is extraordinarily rare that a UN ambassador would be involved in unmasking or even conducting surveillance or requesting surveillance on American political figures or people around them, especially during a presidential campaign, that this would be extraordinary. And that is true. Her job was primarily foreign policy and dealing with things at the UN. What she was doing, requesting surveillance on hundreds of times of individuals, including, it appears, people in the Trump campaign, possibly Trump himself, and then requesting that requesting the surveillance, and then going one step farther and requesting the unmasking. And this is a real simple crime. If they really want to get to the bottom of this crime and figure out if you have a crime here and get to the bottom of it and do something about it instead of just talk, if they really want to, keep in mind that in the United States of America, you actually have to have a warrant signed by a judge to conduct surveillance on anyone. You have to go to a judge and say, okay, we have reason to believe this individual is involved in this criminal activity or, whatever, in which case a judge will give you a sign off on the warrant so that you can conduct the surveillance. Now, in the case of national security at the federal level, dealing with the intelligence agencies, they set up this FISA court, the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act. And it works basically the same way. You have a panel of judges. I think there's 8 or 9 of them. They serve these like 10-year appointments. Basically, to get surveillance on someone, you have to go to the FISA court. And you still have to present some sort of probable cause, or in this case, reasonable suspicion that the individual that you want to conduct surveillance on is guilty of a crime, or you suspect that they may be involved in plotting a crime. You have to have some evidence. And this is all done in a court proceeding. There are records. So if they want to really get to the bottom of this, it shouldn't take them long to do it. They just need to go to the FISA court, and what they need to see that is in each and every case that Samantha Power requested surveillance, and especially unmasking, which is another process that goes beyond even the FISA court process, all of which has to be documented, and there has to be reasons. There have to be reasons. You cannot just go say, yeah, we just want to, surveil this person because, we're just kind of curious as to what they might be talking about, what they may be doing. Curiosity will not get you a FISA warrant. And if, in fact, curiosity did secure a FISA warrant, that's the end of the FISA court. If they did not go through the FISA court, if they conducted this surveillance and did the end around using John Brennan or any other source in the government or intelligence agencies, the NSA or anyone else, and they went around the legal process, these people should be going to jail for a very, very long time. This is not a tough one to sniff out. This one should not take 6 months or 6 years or 6 decades or 6 millennia. This one should take about 6 hours to figure this one out. Hopefully they won't pull our dicks on this one, because I don't know about you, but I'm getting tired of it. Off the record, Adam Housley, who's doing a very good job over at Fox.com, said his source told him that the unmasking of the Trump officials was purely for political purposes, to embarrass Trump, and that they had nothing to do with national security. This is what Devin Nunes says. Now, if we ever get around to any of this and ever get to the bottom of it, assuming they want to get to the bottom of it, and if they look at any of that, any of those unmasked conversations, and they find that none of them had anything to do with national security, and there's a procedure you go through when you realize that what you unmask had no bearing on national security and wasn't providing any real information. At that point, there's a process they go through which they must destroy that. They must remask it, essentially. They must stop. They can't proliferate it. They can't go any farther. And they have to clean it up because it's an error. And there's a process for correcting their error. If none of these things were done, getting a probable cause for the warrant, following all these procedures through the FISA court, and then handling the situation correctly once they got the unmasking, if all this wasn't done, this is hard jail time for a lot of people, especially Samantha Power, who had no business being involved in anything like this. Or Susan Rice, for that matter, National Security Council. No reason whatsoever these two women should have been involved in it, which is probably the exact reason why they were. Absolutely. Russian Prime Minister Medvedev says that the establishment will remove Trump from office. Well, Mr. Medvedev, they're certainly going to try. They're doing everything they can, but let me assure you of one thing, Mr. Medvedev. Do not underestimate the power of the silent majority when you fuck with them. Okay? I don't know about Russia, but I can tell you here in the United States, there's a lot of people who get up every day, go to work, do their thing, and they will put up with a lot of shit from this government and from the swamp, from the deep state. They will put up with a lot of shit, but they have a point, they have a breaking point, and if they try to force our president out of office on some bullshit, I can assure you it will not go as smoothly as they believe it will. I can assure you there will be a large fight back against that. So my suggestion to you, Mr. Medvedev, is watch closely. Pay close attention. And you will find out exactly what ticks in the heart of a real, true, red-blooded, patriotic American who doesn't take shit. Doesn't take it lying down, doesn't take it easily. Thank you for tuning in. This has been TowerGate Day 151. I appreciate your comments, sharing my videos, subscribing to my channel. Appreciate it very much. Enjoy reading your comments. I look forward to being back with you tomorrow. We'll see what drops next. We're going to be on this thing like white on rice, my friends. I'm not going anywhere, Mr. Medvedev, and we're not letting this thing go. Nor are we going to forget about Seth Rich. I'll stay on that to my last breath. Promise. See you guys. Have a good night. Bye.